you paint a black dog without using the color black? Yes, you can. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about different ways of getting black color. Also, I will explain to you step by step how I painted this cute dog. If you want to show your support, the only thing you can do is to subscribe to my channel and hit the like button. Get your paints and brushes ready. We are going to paint this cute dog. Our first step is to decide on the colors on our dog. I mean, we know the black part, but what are the other colors in the white? After I did that, I prepared my supplies. I had my watercolor from Winsor & Newton, and then I taped my paper. I usually like to do this because it has a very nice frame effect. I have 2 jars of water, my palette, and my brushes. I will also use a very tiny brush as well, number 3. And these are the watercolor brushes. I don't know if you have ever seen them. They are amazing. Also, here is my masking fluid. I'm gonna use a lot of tissue in this tutorial, and I'm going to have my white gouache. Let's take our black color. Well, no problem. If I don't have black, I have other ways to do it. Let me show you. The first method, if you mix complementary colors, you will get black. Let's choose cadmium yellow and violet for this one. Here is my violet, and I'm gonna get my cadmium yellow. And when we mix them, this is what you're gonna get. Of course, if you do second and third layer, it's going to look exactly like black. The second method is mixing all the primary colors, meaning yellow, red, and blue. Of course, depending on how much you put in from which one, it's going to change its tone a little bit. But if you have exact amount of paint, then what you're gonna get is a color that looks like black. Here you go. And the third method is what actually I'm going to use in my painting. These are the colors I'm gonna use: yellow ochre, burnt umber, alizarin crimson, ultramarine, and Payne's gray. You can use indigo instead of Payne's gray as well. I'm erasing my sketch. I use graphite pencil, HB pencil to sketch, and I don't want it to show. Now I'm mixing burnt umber, Payne's gray, and ultramarine blue. So blue and brown makes another beautiful mix of black. It has a little bit of a greenish undertone, but once it dries, it really looks black. And it's a beautiful, beautiful tone of black. As you can see, I'm preparing a large amount of mixture because I don't want to run out in the middle of my painting. I'm starting wet on wet method. I just wetted my paper, and now I'm doing the very first layer. The first layer is the lightest one. So I mixed a lot of water with my paint mixture, and I am basically putting all the black parts with my brush. It's a very light color, so once it dries, it's gonna even look lighter. The second layer will be much darker. While my paper is still wet, I'm going in with my brush full of this paint mixture that I had. And in order to create these highlights, I am going in with my brush with some clean water. Instead of using clean water, you can also do one more method, which I'm going to show you in a second. This might cause a lot of pooling of water on your painting, so I try to avoid that. The second method I'm going to show you in a bit is by using a tissue. Here I see some more parts. I'm not touching the white parts, I'm not touching the eyes. But I'm going to go around this chin area. Now, this is the method I was talking about. I have my tissue in my hand and I'm just going over where I want to highlight. I'm doing the same thing on the second part. Before my paint dries, I have to give those highlightings, otherwise it's going to be too late. In watercolor, it is important to act quick sometimes. Here are the other fur effects that I'm giving with my napkin. And here you see that I am doing the first layer of the nose. The third layer, of course, will be even darker, and this time I'm giving a little bit more fur effect. I'm just using my round brush. In order to give the fur effect, I'm just releasing the pressure on my brush towards the end. And what you can do here is basically, again, avoiding the white parts and keep giving the highlights wherever you want them and keep the dark places dark. Also, I'm doing the same thing for the right part, adding all those fur effects with my tissue and going down. And once it dries, I'm doing wet on dry method. This time my brush is damp and my paper is dry. I'm giving all these dark final black details. As you can see, as it dries, it gets this beautiful black tone. Would you like to draw and paint with me step by step and learn all the techniques that I use? I post 3 new fully narrated real-time tutorials on my Patreon every month. You can have access to all my watercolor painting and colored pencil, pastel, charcoal, and graphite drawing tutorials for as low as $5 a month. Patreon.com/ecegürler. Do you see how I release the pressure on my brush towards the end? Another tip I want to give you is to use the grainer brush to give the fur effect. This is very useful. If you have your paint still wet, just go and dip this brush and you're just gonna pull towards the top and you will get all these fur-like lines. I try to keep these lines a little bit shorter so that they look a little bit more realistic. While my paint is still wet, I also do this towards the darker parts as well. I'm doing exactly the same thing to the right. I'm gonna use that brush again, the grainer brush, to give all these fur effect. Even here towards the end you can see like it's outward. And then I'm giving this highlight effect with my tissue. I have to do all of these while my paint is still wet. Let's do the white parts. White parts are never white. As you saw in the beginning, I chose my colors accordingly. There are some grays, some blue tones here, so I used a very, very light Payne's gray and a little bit of our mixture from the black. But you can do even lighter. That's all up to you. Just don't leave it white there. For the lower part, I just mixed a little bit more water so that it looked lighter. Unfortunately, my sketch was gone, so I had to draw it again with my HB pencil. Eyes are important because they are at the center of your painting and they should look realistic. This is my last layer. Now my paper is dry, but my brush is wet, and this is called wet on dry method. You see how rich this black looks? It's amazing, and I still have a lot of mixture left, so this is good. It's not stressing me out. Now let's do the nose. I'm using the exact same black, and to give these details, of course, I need a smaller brush. And while that's drying, I also do the jaw part. I'm basically making it a little bit darker. Now you see that on the chest part, there's a little bit of yellow ochre area, and I'm just using my yellow ochre there and pulling the paint down with my brush. And I'm gonna do a few layers of these. While that's drying, I'm also doing the tongue, and for the tongue, I used alizarin crimson. Let it dry, and while we are waiting for that to dry, we are doing the first layer of the eye with our yellow ochre. Just make sure that around the eye area is dry when you do this. I'm leaving out all the bright parts, the reflections in the eye, and also I'm leaving out the eyeball because I'm gonna make their black. Now, I dipped my grainer brush into my black mixture and I just use a little bit of napkin to get that excess of water out, and you see that I'm giving all these little bit fur details there. And I'm giving all these fur details just around the mouth. I dipped my small brush into my black mixture and carefully I just drew those lines around the eye, and also I made the eyeball. Again, it is important to leave the reflections alone because that's what gives the realistic effect. Later, I also put just a little bit of alizarin crimson, very light tone of it, into the white of the eye. Now I'm finishing up the nose. It's time to do the mouth area. For the mouth, I'm using the exact black mixture. I'm just going and contouring around the teeth and also the darkest areas. For the lower part, I added a little bit more yellow ochre, and also I mixed my black mixture with a little bit of water and added some more fur details there just to add some movement. After that, of course, by using my grainer brush, I blended all these colors in. As a final step, I'm adding even more yellow ochre. Now for the tongue, as you can see, I added some water first, and then I pulled that black color from the shadow area down so that it gave a little bit of shadow there. In order to give the realistic effect to the fur down in the chest, I dipped my brush into clean water and I tried to mix all of these into each other. And in order to brighten up the colors a little bit, as a final layer, I painted very light violet. I don't know if you do this kind of burnishing, but I really like doing this in watercolor. When it dries, it gives such a nice vibrant color. With my smallest brush, I added a little bit of alizarin crimson and this black tone together to create a more natural shadow color there. Now I'm drying everything because I'm about to add the whiskers. And for the whiskers, I added a little bit of water to my white gouache. And first, by using my grainer brush, I'm going to add these little whiskers right here, just a little bit. And also here. And also I added some highlights on the teeth as well with the white gouache again. And for the main whiskers, you will have to put your hand on the table for sure, because you need to have some kind of support. And carefully, very slowly, from bottom to top, by releasing the pressure on your brush, do the whiskers. Gouache is a little bit hard to erase, but we can always go over them with our black color again. And I just wanted to lighten up the chin, the jaw area as well, so I added more gouache there. And in order to give them a natural look, I went over them with clean water. Don't forget though, white gouache will become more transparent as it dries. Here we go, I added some more gouache around the eye area as well, and it looks great. I love this puppy. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. I'll see you in my next video. Bye! Thanks for watching my video. If you like my videos, please don't forget to subscribe. And for my real-time narrated tutorials, visit my Patreon, patreon.com/ecegürler. Stay with art and love.